The conflict in Ukraine, it could, I repeat, it could be possibly coming to an end today. Now, they just signed this peace deal back on Thursday, and even though there was still fighting going on throughout the weekend before it was scheduled to go into effect today, we're hoping that both sides will honor the deal from this point on and stop trying to get hits in. Now, here over in the US, I've seen the mainstream media and the establishment, those elite politicians, they have been pouring reservoirs of just ridiculous sympathy onto the Ukrainians throughout this entire conflict. They've thrown billions of dollars behind them, and they've completely pledged their support, to say the least, to that side. They're like, oh, we must stop Putin and the Russians from hurting on the Ukrainians. And then, they talk about Putin. Oh, Putin, he's so bad and ugly and violent. Oh, he must be stopped, because he actually stands up to the U.S. and our ridiculousness. But, no, okay, now before I get ripped by you people, please do not get me wrong, okay? I don't believe annexing Crimea back in early 2014 was okay. Absolutely not. And then the other territories that they've pushed the Russian rebels to take back as well. That's simply not okay. The Ukrainians own that land. It's theirs under the law. But let's be real now. The US and other European nations would not give a crap about this situation if the United States was not driven to create beef with the Russians and stir things up in our relations. I think this conflict, it's just been used as an excuse by the US to put excessive and brutal sanctions onto the Russians, and by doing that, try to destroy their economy. And that's one economic competitor out of the way for these huge American corporations that, of course, are in bed with our politicians. And then, the US, we just pressured Western Europe to go along with all of these economic sanctions because the US is the puppet master, and those European nations get pulled like a rag doll when it comes to the US getting what we want out of these countries. But see, getting those nations was critical in terms of these sanctions because they are geographically much closer to Russia. So if there were bans on trade between those nations and Russia, it would obviously hinder Russia a lot more than it would with just America, because obviously we're nearly several thousand miles away. However, beyond what our motive might be trying to get involved in this conflict, let's analyze this situation even further. Who should you really be supporting in this conflict? My answer? Nobody. I am completely neutral on this conflict because both sides are guilty of so many violations. They're guilty of this brutality, and they've shown a degree of ruthlessness that just shouldn't be allowed in the world. With Russians, they're trying to steal Ukrainian territories. It's simply not permissible, man. But by the same token, Ukraine has gone about defending the territories in the most brutal ways imaginable. In eastern Ukraine, the region where much of this fighting is taking place, their genius plan to show the people in that region that the Ukrainian government is all macho and it's so much better than the rebels is to give absolutely no aid or support to that region, which is basically like locking a person into a cell with lions in order to show that you're better than the lions themselves. Okay, genius, but you're the ones who locked them in there in the first place. Come on, man. And then the largest cities in that region, they are completely decimated. And obviously, without any support from the government, they cannot repair all of that damage. People are struggling to find food, to find housing, which has just completely been destroyed under all of this fighting. And it's all has to do with the government's lockout of eastern Ukraine. But beyond that, the Ukrainian government, it's shown a documented history, not just in this conflict, but in the eastern region of that country, of pretty much tormenting the Russian minority there. So going down the list of atrocities committed by the Ukrainian side, you might be asking, so why are you neutral in this conflict? Well, as I said, it's the very nature and premise of the Russian engagement in this conflict, of taking regions of Ukraine. It's just not acceptable. Therefore, I automatically just cannot fully support your side, simply out of principle. But it's a very interesting conflict to analyze and study, and it's a great thing to keep an eye on because there's so many variables going on. There's just so many things that are happening. But it's a great thing to see that this conflict, it's possibly coming to a close today. So the U.S. will butt out and start trying to turn this into this East versus West standoff. 60 years into the making, peace would finally come about. Thank you all for listening to Progressive Talk Daily. Remember to hit the subscribe button, spam that like button, and visit the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this conflict. And remember to tell your friends and family about PTD. Spread the word. Have a fantastic day.